Welcome back to Ultra Uncovered. I'm Corinne Shalvoy. I am flying solo today as Russell Ditsworth cannot be with us, but we have an amazing guest here today, Kevin Goldberg. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
All right. So, Kevin, you and your co host have been covering a whole bunch of interviews around Cocodona, but I wanted to talk to you about Cocodona specifically. You are a absolute veteran of 200s in my mind. You've run 10, is that correct?
Yes, 10.
10 200 plus mile races. So, I feel like that's gotta be, one of the there's gotta be, like, less than 10 people in the world that have done that, I feel like, at this point in time, because it's such a new thing, so I can't even imagine the experiences you've had. I think where I wanna start, is with this Taylor Swift song, Mastermind, right? I think
Yes.
you put this out, was it during Cocodona one year that you listened to this song how many times?
It was during Tour de France.
It was during doing tour, okay,
Yeah.
during tour, okay.
So it
Tell
was
us
it
the
was
story.
sure. It was on a really slick, like wet, rainy descent in the dark. And it was just really sketchy, probably at least the most dangerous part. It felt like it for me. And I was listening to my playlist, which has like 40 hours of music on it, and it's very, very diverse. Everything from like Disney soundtrack songs to like hardcore rap. It's got everything. And there's a lot of T Swift on there because I'm a big fan. And somehow it switched from shuffle to like repeat. So
Mm.
it was on Mastermind, and I was like already out of my mind. So I didn't touch it for like 4 or 5 hours. I just left like Mastermind going in my headphones for like this entire descent. And the descents at Tour and the climbs are like 9 miles long. They're like really, really long, like single descents. So I was on this thing for hours, moving really slowly, just listening to T Swift sing Mastermind over and over and over again. And as I continued to like spiral into insanity.
Wow, that is super interesting. So how many times did you listen to it? Did you count?
I didn't
It
count, but if it was 4 hours, and I think it's like a 3.5 minute
like a
song,
couple hundred?
so yeah, a couple of hundred.
Wow. I had to say, like, I think I saw that post when you first put it out, and it actually inspired me to listen to it because I wasn't familiar with that song of hers. I'm a fan as well, but I wasn't familiar with that particular song. And I was like, I wonder, just if this has special significance or like what about it. But that's great to
Nothing.
hear the story that it just was on repeat. So
It's
were
just the
you
one
by
that was.
yourself?
I was, yeah. There's no Pacers at tour, and I didn't really connect with too many people because it was a lot of French and Italian, and I don't speak those languages. So lots of alone time with just me and Tay Tay. And
Wow.
yeah, Mastermind is surprisingly not ruined for me. I still enjoy the song, but no significant meaning. Just the one that was on.
Yeah, I interesting. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing the story. So that I guess that kind of leads into, thinking about I guess the mental aspect and like where your mind, where your brain goes during these kinds of races. I think that's just fascinating. Like we've heard, I went and saw The Chase. It's a great film. Jeff Browning's talking about how you have to be, aware of yourself and you have to be your own kind of guide and like you have to take control and own the decisions. And yet then I've also heard the opposite of that where, right, somebody like Tara Dower on the AT outsourcing everything else to her crew. You do all this for me. All I'm going to do is focus on running. And so I guess I'm curious what your thought is on, using people, using crew and support to outsource some of that stress. And do you get to a point in these races where you feel like you just don't really have that mental clarity, like, and what do you do to kind of make sure you stay safe and stay, stay good?
Yeah, so I mean, I've raced these all the ways you can. My favorite way is fully supported and fully crewed and fully paced. I think these are social events for me, and I like sharing them with close friends. I've done them completely solo, no pacers, no crew, and then in cases like tour, you're not allowed to have pacers, so just crew occasionally. So I've run them in all the ways. I think me personally, like the mastermind incident, there's times where I can count on maybe one or two hands where I've truly like disassociated and like like gone out of my mind completely and like lost sight of my task. I'm typically more in like the Jeff Browning camp of like always focused on at least a goal and very like kind of on top of my shit. But as far as the like responsibility between myself and the crew, because I'm more often than not I am crewed. I like to take ownership over the plan and my actions as long as I feel like I'm still thinking clearly, which for me is usually gets me through the 40, 50 hour mark. And then I start to fade and I rely on my crew to sort of like take over then and make the decision of when to take over. Because that's when I tend to start losing or just not making the best decisions for myself.
Okay. How much of that is like sleep deprivation is it all or is it, is it just cumulative fatigue from all systems at the same time? Like I guess I'm just kind of curious, and I think a lot of people would be too, of like how does that feeling compare to, being deep into 100-mile race? Like is it a different type of like exhaustion?
Yeah, I think the very primary driver is sleep deprivation, especially for myself. I'm a poor sleeper in these races and struggle to like sleep enough at the right times and fall asleep. So I as I slip further and further into sleep deprivation state, I do feel like everything gets sort of exacerbated. I think a big difference too between especially hundreds and 200s is just like when something comes up, you might catastrophize it more in a 200 than you would in a 100, and that really can affect your decision making and your like overall like outlook on the race. And like if there's something wrong at mile 150 and I've only slept 20 minutes, the doom forecasting that I'm doing is so much worse than it might be if I was not in that state. And that's something that I struggle with that my crew can help like say like yeah, so okay, this hurts, that's true, like so everyone's got something that hurts, like, but we need to do this. And that's like I might not do that on my own if I didn't have the help there.
Got it. Sure. Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. It's yeah, just again, the perspective and being able to separate from thinking about how much more is left or like, yeah, how much longer you're going to be out there. I know that, yeah, I've had trouble doing that even in, hundreds. I can't even imagine on multi-day stuff. So, you also tend to go back to, these 200s over and over again. Kind of like, tell me your thought about like, I believe Bigfoot was your first in 2018, right? So, and then you went back, you did the triple crown the following year, including Bigfoot. Then you went back to Bigfoot again in 2021. And this will be will this be your third Cocodona?
Fourth Cocodona.
Fourth Cocodona. Okay. Oh yeah, you've done it every year. So, okay. So like, yeah, like thoughts on that? Do you intentionally like kind of just trying each time to improve certain things now that you know the course, or like what is your thought around like returning to these races over and over?
I think I'm always trying to quit and stop returning, and I just am a really bad quitter.
Bad quitter. That's probably a good thing in 250. Is a bad
Yeah, yeah, it comes in handy. But I
quitter.
every year I say, okay, this is it. For me, I think I've gotten faster every year at Cocodona. I was faster every year at Bigfoot. So I think it's a combination of like I love like for to return to Bigfoot 3 years, return to Cocodona now coming on 4. I love the course. I love the vibe of these races, and then like couple that with like okay, I can go faster here. I can do better here. I can like improve on these challenges that have slowed me down here and there. That drives me to an extent. So it's a combination of those things. I just keep thinking like there's more that I can do on that course, so it keeps pulling me back.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like you've had a really amazing 200-mile race? Like for the most part that you quote unquote nailed one?
Absolutely not. No,
Absolutely not.
I don't think I've had a good ultra, to be honest with you. I really,
Really?
and I don't know if that's like in my head, if I'm really hard on myself, or if how much truth there is to that. It could just be completely like my, like maybe I have a little too much of a pessimistic inner dialogue. But no, I certainly have not nailed the 200, and I think very few people have. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
Harry came the closest that we've seen last year, but even Harry would tell you. I mean, I've talked to Harry. He had lows. He wanted to sleep in Walnut Canyon, and that probably would have let Jeff have the edge that he needed. Like there's always something that we can take away from these races. And for myself personally, it feels like every year is just a new pile of challenges. So I'm excited for
Yeah.
what this year brings.
Well, it's gonna be one for the books this year with the field and just, again, just, the growing live stream. It's gonna be really cool, and I think there's such a dedicated audience to this, to this segment of our sport that it's, I don't know, it's gonna be like going back to just your family and your community, and you're gonna, I'm sure, jump in the chat again, which is always really fun. Okay, so, um, kind of along those lines, like, going back to the sleep piece, what what are you going to do this year? What would you tell people that are maybe going to get into 200s for the first time around trying to figure out what they plan to do or what they should do for sleep?
Yeah, I mean, this is, one of the most popular questions. It seems like everything in 200s always comes back to sleep. I myself have not done a good job, even in 10 tries. It's just so hard because you can't really practice it in training. And if you are practice it in training, it's detrimental to other aspects of training in life. So it's really kind of tough to do. I do feel like as we're seeing, faster and better performances in these races, we are learning more about sleep. You see like in the chase, like the struggles that String Bean had with his sleep. You see Jeff sleeping on night one. A lot of these top runners are sleeping on night one. That's something I've never done, at least not by choice. I always feel kind of too amped up to sleep in the first night. So I might try sleeping night one this year. I think one thing I've learned that we all have a plan and we all try to forecast. It's really hard to forecast and plan in the field when it comes to sleep. So I do think that like forcing sleep early can be a really viable strategy versus like just sort of winging it with trail naps and like sleeping when you're tired. It's kind of like the drink when you're thirsty. Well, that might not work because you are already dehydrated by the time it happens. Same goes for like sleep when you're tired. Like if you're tired, then it might be too late, and you're already in such a deficit that it's going to be
Mhm.
harder to catch up. And
Yeah.
lastly, I think it's really hard if you go slower than you anticipate. It's really hard to catch up on sleep. Like it's very difficult to recoup that.
hmm Do you do you believe there's anything to kind of banking sleep in the, days, week before the race? Do you think that is beneficial at all?
I do. I tend to try to sleep like as much 9-10 hours a night the few days before if I can. I'll even occasionally take like Z-Quil the week before the race. I don't typically do that in like my day to day life, but I find that it doesn't affect me negatively. And then in 2022, no 2023, I didn't sleep the night before the race. Like I was just like so excited and anxious. I got like 30 minutes of sleep, and I had to sleep at mile 60. I was so tired that year. So it definitely like the sleep before the race matters a lot. I think
Okay.
no pressure.
And you're also, it sounds like you're also kind of like maybe starting to believe in the preventative, or the, yeah, do it before you think you need it kind of approach, so that you can kind of stay on top of it as much as possible. That's interesting. So yeah, we'll be excited to follow along this year and see how it goes with you. And if I see you sleeping on day one, I might be like, yeah, let's go. This is what Kevin wanted, was gonna do. He's gonna this is the plan, or this is the right thing. Okay, so tell us a little bit about technology and communication while you move along the course. Like, you famously are in the live stream, fixture in the live stream. You've said that it helps you um, talk about doing nightly calls with athletes. Like, yeah, what is this help? How is this helpful? Is this is a question from Russ? Is it a distraction? Is it motivation? And it seems maybe it's underused among athletes. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll try to answer this in a way that won't make my wife make fun of me. Let's see. So I'm a very connected person, like very social, very outgoing, like extrovert, constantly in contact with friends, family. So I kind of carry that out onto the course with me. And I think to answer Russ's question, I think it's both. I think it's a distraction and a motivation. Um, so for context, I spent a lot of miles in the live stream at Cocodona 250. So I'm running the race and I'm actually like in the YouTube live chat, like chatting with people. I typically have like 5+ athletes who I coach who are running each year, and we do calls throughout the course. So I'm like staying very connected throughout the whole race. It's a miracle I haven't like tripped and majorly hurt myself yet. And if I do, hey, I deserved it. Um, So I think it helps more than it hurts, at least so far, because it does. You get to a place where you're so deprived of sleep and energy and like your normal like stimulations and like things that normally make you feel good are just like like they're doing nothing. So like having this like novel like external validation and like social, yeah, it helps. So I think it helps a lot. And I spend a lot of time at Cocodona like connecting, which is funny because it's such a unconnected experience where you're in this remote, like difficult environment. And I like to stay as connected as I can.
Yeah, I can understand that because having been someone that like I've commentated hard rock and I've paced hard rock. And when I'm out there pacing, it's so different than when you're part of the live stream and you're surrounded by all this conversation and there's excitement and there's talking and there's music noise and like it really like is just a completely different environment if you're out there, especially if you're by yourself, like in the race. And so I could see how that could bring some energy back in. And you said something interesting that that is your personality. And so, knowing that you're kind of a social creature and that energizes you, like, maybe that is beneficial for you. Whereas someone who's a super introvert, it would be detrimental to them, could be if they tried to do that because it could be draining or something. So that's fascinating. Well, I think everyone enjoys that you jump in there, and glad that it helps you out as well. So I think it's super cool. How long did it take you to put together this playlist? I'm going to go back to the playlist because you said there's how many songs? I've tried to put together playlists for 100-mile races, and I'm like just throwing random albums on there because I'm like, I'm only up to 15 hours, and I got to put 24 hours on this thing.
Yeah, so it's I think there's 40 hours of music on it.
Oh,
I think the playlist started in 2016 or so, and it's a shared playlist with a few friends.
nice.
So it started as like we would add like songs like jokingly to like then the other people would see that there was a new song and it would be like this most ridiculous thing, and it sort of evolved into still that, but also like a bunch of music that we enjoy. And it's so different people are adding different things all the time, and yeah, it's just evolved into this. It's not a good playlist. Like it's I think most people would think it's a bad playlist, but I like it and it's got some good stuff on it.
Hey, I mean, you probably, like you're saying, you need a lot of variety. You need to get in some different mind spaces over the course of that long. So no judgment on it whatsoever. All right. Just touching back on the awareness, sleep deprivation piece, kind of starting to lose your mind, so to speak, during some of these events. Is there anything that you do in particular to kind of help maintain awareness or cognition? If that's the use of caffeine, if that's, like listening to something or engaging with the community, anything that you would recommend or that you particularly do to try to maintain some of that awareness?
Yeah, I think I this is an area where I could improve a lot, but I have improved a little bit each year of like bringing myself like back into the present and like letting myself know that I'm okay. Like it's not as bad as it might seem. I've definitely leaned on the live stream and others for that. Like I think I remember last year between Munns Park and Fort Tuttle, I was just like crying, like bawling my eyes out, and I didn't even know why. Like I was just crying, and I like took the live stream out and was like, I'm crying and every people are like, why? And I was like, I don't know. So like stuff like that. I very much utilize caffeine. I have a funny like text thread between my friend Dina, who's a registered dietitian, of like saying like, hey, if my friend wanted to take in like max amount of caffeine per hour and he weighs this much, and like how much would
Mm,
that be?
okay.
And
Okay.
definitely have pushed the limits of caffeine between like Walnut Canyon and the finish in this race, where it's like 300 milligrams every 2 hours for like
Wow.
6 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Is this in like pill form?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So like
Okay.
breaking pills into pieces and having them like frequently. And I'm not a doctor. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I haven't I haven't gotten too messed up. Although sometimes I have a lot of trouble sleeping after the race because I'll
Yeah.
load up on caffeine in the final 8 hours or so. And then yeah, just like listening to stuff helps, usually, especially if I do have a pacer and we can like sing or goof around with it and like make it a
Mhm.
little more interactive.
Okay. Yeah. I imagine just being with somebody at those points. So, I wasn't super aware of this. Is this something they've done every year at Cocodona where they don't have where you're not allowed to have pacers in the some of the final sections, or is it just this year due to the kind of the permitting stuff and stuff like that, the amount of people on course?
Yeah, it's new for this year. I'd say probably if my top 3 struggles in a 200 have
Mhm.
come between Fort Tuttle and Walnut Canyon.
Okay.
And this year
And
you
for
cannot have a
context, those
pacer.
are miles.
210 to 220,
Okay.
210 to
Okay.
230-ish. Yeah,
Okay. And you're not allowed to use pacers there this year?
correct, yeah.
Okay.
So one of my goals is, I really wanna try to do it in the daytime.
Makes sense.
Um, Last year, like, I did half of it in the daytime and then spiraled into darkness, both actually and in my head. Um, and, I really a big goal of mine this year is to make it to Walnut Canyon in the daylight.
All right.
We'll
Sounds
see.
like a great goal.
Sounds hard.
So your fastest finish so far at Cocodona, correct me if I'm wrong,
72.
72. Was that last year? No,
That
that
was
was
last year.
okay, that was 2024. Okay, 72. 2022 you were 4th. I don't have your place on here from 20 last year. What did you end? You were up there.
I was 10th.
Okay, that's crazy because there were 5 guys that went under 70 hours, is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Oh man, it's insane. So okay, so what are the goals this year? Time goals, placement goals, any other I hear your question on distance to empty, the non-performance goal. So however you want to take that question, what would be your goals for the 2025 Cocodona?
Sure, I love it. We're all so like hyper focused on performance that sometimes want to talk myself out of that. But I do keep coming back to Cocodona for performance reasons.
Mhm.
It's like constantly evolving. Like it used to be, I really want to be on the podium. That I was so close 2 times. That's evolved a little bit just because honestly, it's starting to feel out of reach for me. I'm still going to shoot for it and hope for it, but it's become more of a time goal just because I want to stay within myself and do what I can control, or at least what I can try to control. So this year, the main goal is 65 hours. Um, I would really like to be under 70 is kind of like that sub goal. And I would like to really like not lose sight of the goal and believe that it's possible longer than I have in the past. That's kind of my non-performance goal, is to like believe in the goal longer, because a lot of times I give up early. I've given up as early as Mingus Mountain in this race, which I think is too early to give up in a 250.
It's all relative because you so I get what you're saying. You've given up kind of in your mind. You've made it to the finish line every single time, which is a huge, huge accomplishment. So don't be too hard on yourself with that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. So 65-hour train for that this year. That's yeah, that's crazy, and I think just as the sport of 200s in particular evolves, right, we'll see more of the going out and going for it and back to the heavy attrition game, and so that might allow, somebody like you to end up really just running through the field and placing pretty high just based on your experience, which would be really cool. So, awesome. Well, last thing I want to touch on is just a little bit about kind of recovery and then like how you think running 200s contributes to your speed aspect, because you run a lot of hundreds as well, and shorter races, kind of do a lot of everything. First question is around recovery. Like, how do you've done the Triple Crown, which those were like 3 weeks apart from one another, right? What have you learned about recovery from these multi-day races?
Yeah, I've learned if I'm, if, I think if you, at least in my opinion, there's always going to be exceptions, but I think if you want to compete, and that could mean, compete for a podium spot or just like compete within yourself and perform at the top level that you as an individual are capable of, I think you can't do too many of these 200s a year, or at least I can't. I found that even when I do two in a year, it really impacts performance. The first one impacts performance of the other, no matter how spaced out they are. And I think it definitely impacts performance on shorter races. I feel like I've gotten slower and slower in shorter races, which is okay. I want to be good at 200s. That's my goal. But I do feel like there are people who seem to be better at doing it all, but then you wonder like, well, could they be even better at one or the other if they narrowed the focus? I feel like I've gotten slower with the focus on like volume and performance at the 200-mile distance.
Okay. I mean, I don't think you're slow. You ran Western, you ran a sub 24-hour Western like this. That's
Slower, like slower than I
okay.
could be
Yeah, 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 yeah.
if the goals were different.
It makes sense. That makes sense. So and then anything about just like things that you found helpful for recovery? Like, do you do anything in particular? Do you really focus on sleep after the races and on nutrition, on, you know, movement and continuing to walk around? Like, do you take time completely off, or like, what's your normal protocol after a big race? Like, what will you do after Cocodona 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I'll preface with this with saying like I'm not a low volume runner. I run a lot. I put in a lot of hours. I run by time. But when
How
a
many
lot
hours a week do you typically train?
when I'm doing like peak 200 training, it'll be like 15 to 20 hours. I just did a 23-hour week this past week.
Whew, that's
Um, yeah, it feels
and you
like a
work a
lot.
full-time job.
Yeah. But I always ask my athletes to ask. I ask them to ask me this question. I say, ask me what I would, what someone who's performing well in these races is doing more of that I'm not doing.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
my answer for most athletes is that the athletes who are performing well at these races are resting more than you are. Uh, I think taking rest days seriously, taking non-running time seriously is really important when you're going to ask your body to do 23-hour weeks. So even in peak training, I think taking time to rest, downtime, non-movement time, or really like gentle movement, like walking the dogs and stuff like that is helpful. As far as like post Cocodona, the days after Cocodona are rough because I try to spend as much time around like Heritage Square as I can, and I'm like getting like 20,000 steps walking around doing things, and it's like it probably impacts recovery pretty negatively.
Hey,
But I wouldn't trade it for anything.
nice.
But then when I get back home the weekend after Cocodona, I'll take at least a full week off of running. Just easy dog walks, lots of couch time, lots of Netflix, lots of like work and other things,
Mhm.
and tons of sleep. Like I usually sleep like 10 to 12 hours a day the week after the race. And then if I come out uninjured and things feel good, I'll start like very gently easing back into it from there.
Okay, amazing. We have a couple of really interesting, funny, kind of matchups. I don't know if you've heard these yet, but we, so and so versus so and so at Cocodona, who would come out on top? Have you heard this?
I have, but I'm down to play.
You're down to play. We want to get your answers as well. Okay. So yeah, again, there's just incredible. I'll throw maybe another one in there that you haven't heard. But tell us who you think would finish ahead in these matchups for this year's Cocodona. We've got Finn Melanson or Jeff Garmire.
Okay, well, I'm gonna beat both of them. But
Oh, bold.
but that wasn't the question.
I love it though.
I love Jeff and Finn. They're both great dudes. I'm gonna give it to Jeff just because Finn told me he's not gonna sleep this year, and if I'm a betting man, that's risky. It could work. It could work out for him, and maybe it's a slam dunk, and he wins the whole race. And hey, go Finn! But yeah, and Finn said that on our podcast, so I'm not giving away his like secret
Okay.
IP.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll give the edge to Jeff just because I think that's a risky move, Finn. I'm all for it. I can't wait to see how it goes. But yeah, let's say Jeff.
Got it. Okay. Max Jolliffe or Michael Versteeg?
Man, that's tough because Mike is so experienced and Max is so not. At least compared to each other. We both had both of them on Flagstaff Bound as well. Um, I'm gonna give the edge to Max. More upside. Mike's DNF'd a couple of times. He seems like he's really fit and in it this year, but sorry, Mike. I'm gonna go Max.
Okay. We're gonna create like a board of all of our guests and their answers and like who's who to see who gets the most right. But I feel like you're probably one of the most informed people because you've recently on Distance to Empty been talking to all of these people. So you know exactly where they're standing and like how they're feeling. Okay, Jesse Haynes or Cam Haynes?
I got to give it to Jesse Haynes. I mostly because Jesse came on Distance Empty and Cam won't.
Oh, there we go. Okay. You must go on Distance to Empty
yeah,
if you want to be picked as someone.
yeah. No, Cam might still come on for that series, but yeah, I think Jesse's got the experience, the more recent experience there.
Okay. All right. Are you beating Kevin Russ?
Am I beating the Kevin showdown?
the Kevin Showdown
In at Cocodona 250 or at Chipotle segments?
at
That's
Cocodona 250.
okay. I think I am beating Kevin Russ at Cocodona 250.
Okay.
Sorry, Kev.
Okay. Good. Love the confidence. Love it. We got Ryan Sands versus Harry
I
Schuberthos.
I think Ryan Sands is going to win Cocodona 250
You.
2025. Yeah.
Wow. I heard his interview. Sounds like he's been dedicating everything to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I love Harry. I think he is obviously so talented. I wouldn't be surprised if he repeats, but if Ryan's my pick for this year.
okay. Got it. Courtney versus I'm gonna throw this one in there. Uh who's the oh now I'm losing his name. The UK runner who's coming. Oh, the global I gotta find this. We're gonna have to edit this. No, this was on Jamil's. I'm gonna find it right now. He thinks this guy's gonna win the whole thing. Okay, hold on, I'm making a note.
Well, we didn't have him on. This is empty. This is like maybe I need to get an
I
episode
know, like,
going.
yeah, we've got to find this. I can't find it right now. I'm gonna have to look at my handwritten notes. All right, but we're gonna have a Courtney showdown here in a second. But back to the ladies. We've got Rachel Entrican or Mika Theus.
Oh man,
Not an
I'm
easy one.
not an easy one. I'm good friends with both. I think Mika has the experience to do it. It seems to always be like she might go out just a little too hard, and then something gets in the way of it. But I think this might be Mika's year, and I'm going to give it to Mika. I know Rachel is certainly going to give it a really good shot, so it could go either way. But I think I'd give Mika the edge. This is mean that you make people pick against their friends.
No, it's not mean. It's fun. It's just, everyone is rooting for everyone and we want everyone to do amazing, but it's kind of interesting because some of these, like, they're either like the Satisfy Showdown or they have the
Yeah,
same name, but it's
yeah.
kind of fun.
No,
Okay.
I love it. It's
We
not
got a
mean.
couple more. We got Sarah O and Georgia Porter.
So we had both these people on Distance Empty as well. Man, I mean, Georgia's performance on the Arizona Trail was wild. I think they're really poised to like do something big, but I think Sarah O is aiming to be more competitive, at least publicly.
Mhm.
Has a ton of experience, has won the race before, is really fit right now. I'd give the edge to Sarah there.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Georgia texted me after Arizona Trail, she said it was absolutely the hardest thing she'd ever done, but it was amazing and incredible. And she's just somebody who just doesn't quit. So it's going to be really cool to see her, in a race setting of this distance. Can't wait for that. Okay. Andy Glaze or AJW, the Andes.
Well, this one's really easy. Love both those guys, but Andy Glaze is about 160 miles into a 300-mile race right now. And yeah, maybe AJW is on the older side and has a couple of artificial hips, but I got to give it to AJW. I think not running 300 miles 4 weeks before is just too much of a benefit.
Coming in way more fresh, maybe tapered. I know I've been seeing some of this stuff with Andy Glaze, and man, he's having a interesting journey out there.
Everyone is.
Sounds like
Oh, it's been crazy.
all right. So I did find the name. So Courtney DeWalter or Jack Scott.
Well, I mean, and, Jamil said he thinks Jack Scott's going to win, but I don't even know who Jack Scott is.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Jack.
apparently he is also just a very very experienced long distance. I don't know if it's multi-day or FKT in the UK, but has kind of quit his job to go all in on training for it. Is going to have is really really focused on coming over and doing well at it. So yeah, maybe a bit of an unknown quantity, but sounds like somebody that could definitely be up at the front going for it.
Well, I'm sure I'll know who he is after the race, but I will never bet against Courtney.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think, but you're also like, you might be if we're talking Barkley terms, like you're a veteran, and maybe somebody like Jack Scott bolts on to somebody like you and is like, I'm just going to follow you and do what you do because you know how to do these things. So hopefully you'll meet him, maybe share some miles out there. Awesome. Well, that's all I've got. Anything else you want to share with listeners just about Cocodona in general that you you know it as well as there's a handful of you who have done it every year, but know it probably better than most. So any parting words on Cocodona, the race?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's obviously, I keep going back. I think it's such an amazing experience, whether you're, doing the shorter distances in the Flagstaff Crest, I think it's called now, the New Mingus Traverse, Sedona Canyon's 125. They all have really nice cutoffs built in within the full race week, thanks to the fact that there's a race going on around the clock for a week. So I think it's a great opportunity to like push your limits. If 82 is going to be a distance PR or 125, like they're great places to do those things. And yeah, I mean, just get involved. If you enjoy the live stream every year, then like come out and do something there. It's really really fun. And then I have a question for you. I sorry if this has been asked already. I feel like it probably has. Someone must have asked you on the air. But when are you going to do Coconut 250?
Oh Lord, whew. I don't know. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the hundreds and make sure that I feel comfortable with those. I am really I need a lot of sleep. So I'm really worried about the sleep deprivation aspect of something like Cocodona 250. I think talking to people makes it seem so much more approachable. I almost feel like maybe the first one that I ever do, I'm saying this like I will do one at some point because I probably will. Maybe the first one, I'll take a totally different approach and I'll literally like sleep for like 4 to 6 hours every night. And I'll just use it as a way to practice like covering multiple days of a lot of miles and like learn a little bit about it that way before trying to like go on minimal sleep and actually race it. I feel like that's something that I would need to do maybe either in training or in a race environment before I could feel comfortable saying, oh, I might race one. But it's intriguing, and people like yourself just are very inspiring in showing, that it's doable, that it's, it's doable many, many times over, that you can keep coming back, that you can stay healthy through them. So yeah, thank you for kind of setting an example and like sharing all of your knowledge about them with aspiring 200-mile runners like myself, I guess.
We say people who are 200 curious.
200 curious, yes,
Yeah,
for sure. Eventually one day, but I got a few things to do before that. So yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on, Kevin. Best of luck this year. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot in live stream. Good chance I'll be commentating this year again. So don't be a stranger. And yeah, thanks for spending some time today. And everyone go check out the Distance to Empty podcast. What is it called? The
Flagstaff Bound is the
Flagstaff Bound. I keep
oh,
saying Road to Flagstaff, but it's Flagstaff Bound, the Flagstaff Bound series in collaboration with Aravaipa. And everyone tune in to Mountain Outpost on May 5th. Yeah.
sweet.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Corinne.